Hello, and welcome to the Ask Arlene Show. Another wonderful episode. We're so excited because today we have with us an amazing guest by the name of Tracy Doyle. She is an author, she is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, she is a part of the wonderful community of life coaches, people who actually touch, move, and inspire us to do better and to be more and to grow. And we're so excited because today she is going to tell us her harrowing story of how she was able to go from stuck and to go from stressed and to go from bound to to light. Having written a brand new book and now walking on Easy Street. Hello, Tracy Doyle.
Hello.
And welcome to the
Thank
Ask
you.
Arlene Show community.
Thank you.
So, I would love for you, first and foremost, to tell us the title of your book and to tell us a little bit about your background so that our viewers can really know who it is that we're talking with today.
Gladly. So let me just show you the book. So the title of the book is Life Storms, Finding Your Clear Sky. And, basically my background is, where do I even start with that? Basically what most people know about me is that, I'm a successful entrepreneur. I really started my life living in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is, not a great section. I grew up in what's called the Port, which is the poor section of the town. So I started there, but I worked my way through that. First in my family to go to college.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I studied psychology and counseling, but sadly, I came from poverty. So having put myself through school, I couldn't afford the advanced degree. But I transitioned those skills that I learned in counseling and psychology, which were really just active listening skills, and I applied it in the pharmaceutical industry. So I had a phenomenal, stellar career there. And it really prepared me and shaped me for who I am. Because I transitioned from that in 2002. I started my own business and was a big entrepreneur for a long time, right? So I, led and built an award-winning multi-million dollar business. And then in 2023, I exited from that and wrote the book because really I want to live a different purpose now. That purpose
Yes.
before was really transforming science into clinical practice and educating physicians. But now I want to share my lived experience with overcoming emotional burnout, especially for entrepreneurs, but for anyone really struggling with conflict in relationships and struggling with what they clinically diagnose as emotional dysregulation. But let's talk real talk, emotional outbursts as a result of burnout.
Wow, you gave us a mouthful there. Emotional outbursts as a result of
Emotional burnout.
emotional burnout. What is that? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so burnout, I struggled with it for years and I really didn't know what it was. So burnout really starts out feeling like overwhelm. And then
Okay.
it moves into, well, it starts out like stress. You just feel stressed all the time. And then it moves into overwhelm where you're just like, I'm just overwhelmed with everything, with all my responsibilities, especially as
Been
we
there.
age, right? And we start having more responsibilities added to our plate. Then it sort of moves into what I call the conflict phase, which is all of a sudden it seems like everyone and everything is against you and you're thinking like you're at odds with the world and you're like bumping heads with people and you feel like no one understands me, no one hears me. But you keep pushing through until you get to what I call the breaking point. And the breaking point is when you get to a place where like you feel like you just can't handle one more thing. And what it looks like is one day you're managing it all and you're like, yes. And the next day you're just reacting to things that like don't make sense. You're just overreacting. You're having meltdowns. Some people go inward.
Yeah.
They melt down and cry. Others, like me, will have a volcanic eruption that you don't know where it came from.
Right.
And the shame that causes at home, at work, because it happens everywhere.
So
And
it's not like you can handle it at work and then you come home and you have the outburst. It could be anywhere.
anywhere, because once you get to that point of complete, and I say it, complete disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
you're like this, you know, 1 minute you're okay, the next second you're not. And it's like a roller coaster ride of emotion, which is
Well,
why I'm terming it emotional burnout, because we emotionally burn out from all the things that we do.
and is that what led you to the method that you operate in that helps other people to overcome this?
Yeah, what led to it was this. I mean, there was a time when I was so isolated and alone, and I was struggling, and I didn't realize I was struggling. And you know, I pretty much had this belief that I have to sacrifice myself for everybody, and so I did, right? And
Mm.
I felt like a human doing. I'm doing. And it got to a point where it was a breaking point, and I felt like I was just done fighting everyone and everything. And I was at this place in my life where I'll never forget it. It was December 21st, 1999 is when it really happened. And, you know, where it took me, and if you read anything on burnout, where it ultimately takes you is the same place I landed, which was I woke up that day, I caught a glimpse of myself getting ready for work. My eyes were hollow. You
Mm.
know, my spirit was dim. You know,
Mm.
I didn't even recognize myself, because it was like I was so empty inside, you know, and then
Wow.
I'm whispering inside my head, you know, I'm done. I'm done. You know, and I'm having a diatribe. I'm done taking care of my mother. I'm done being responsible for my sister's kids. I'm done being stretched in every direction at work.
Right,
You
right.
know, I'm done fighting. I'm done fighting. And then I thought to myself, you know what? If I got good and drunk, I'd crash the car. And if I crashed the
Mm.
car, no one would know I did that on purpose. And
That's some
that's
serious overwhelm.
burnout takes you, many people, to substance use, and it takes many people to the bitter end, which is sadly suicide. And for me, it had taken me to this place of thinking that sacrifice meant not living anymore, right?
Wow.
Because then it would go away. Because I went through with that, you know, and I woke up to someone knocking on my window, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And how did I get so lost? I mean, I was a wreck, because that next day, the shame I felt having gone through with that
Yes.
was pretty much, you know, like you could have killed yourself and two people. And it was like my head yelling at me and my heart going, but you're still here. And I went on a journey after that, because that, you know, I wanted to live, and I had to learn that sacrifice did not mean losing and abandoning myself. It meant finding my way back to me, because that's where burnout
Wow.
took me, to a complete state of loss and disconnect. So that journey, what it looked like was giving myself permission to ask for and accept help. And that included obviously getting treated for depression. I had a lot of trauma in my life, and
Yes.
I had dealt with some of it. Some of it I hadn't, you know, and I was depressed and I didn't know it. So I got help for that, because clearly suicidal thoughts were suicidal thoughts,
Not a good thing, right?
right? I went to therapy, you know, and what happened was that that first year you know, I was on stable footing. It felt like I can handle life. And then I started
Okay.
my business, and it came back. I started my business and it came back. And I found that all the self-help books I was reading, I mean, everything I was doing, coaches and therapy and you name it, I did it. But it kept these reactions, this stuff kept coming back. And the shame was so deep and so real. And so then
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm smart. I got to figure this out, you know. And so what I found was basically that what was driving my burnout, and this comes from a story actually, that I had a boss once, right?
Yes.
And I was like, I'm overwhelmed and I can't do this anymore. And he actually said to me, you know, all that's coming from inside you. And of course, I'm from New Jersey, so I had some choice words for the guy inside my mind.
Right.
But back when I was struggling again, I realized there had to be more, and what was happening inside of me. So here's what I've learned, and this is what led me to creating the Aurora method. What I learned was it was my internalized beliefs that were shaped by early life experiences that distorted how I thought, how I
Yeah.
felt, and how I related to other people. And the deeper and deeper and deeper I got into burnout, the more distorted it was. And it was a friend who shared it. She shared a tool with me that she learned, and she was from the same industry as me in pharmaceuticals. And what she showed me was this tool that was a self-assessment. But what it showed me, having studied psychology, was where in my life did my needs get stunted? Abraham Maslow says when you've had an experience, a trauma or a wound or something where your needs weren't met, you sort of stop right there. And then what starts to manifest from that is like fears and self-centered thinking. And so, when I saw this tool and I saw what it was uncovering, I was like, this is the bomb. Like, it's really, it like showed me things. But what I learned was that as much as it showed me, self-knowledge doesn't solve it, right? It was getting to this place where I call it the reaction cascade, where I had to come to terms with how did my life experiences affect me and what's happening today? What's the distortion? What I realized was the key word here is resentment. Resentment, people say, oh, I'm resentful at, right? They think they're angry with someone. But the word resentment comes from the French word ressentir, which means deep, deep feeling. So is a deep feeling. When we recognize what we felt then from that experience and the initial belief that was shaped, we can see, and I always point to my body, we can see that it triggers a limiting belief, and then it shoots right to your feet to a fear, comes right back in between your two ears to those thought, feeling, and action distortions. And that's how we walk through life burned out. And I figured out a solution, which is take that self-assessment, but then I created another tool called the turnaround. And it helps you really look at your patterns. And now I truly believe in my heart that emotional burnout is nothing more than a pattern problem, right? It's our thought patterns, our feeling patterns, our behavior patterns. And when we can see them, we can name them, and then we can change them. And that's basically what the Aurora method helps us do. And it's a series of exercises that gets you there. And in getting you there, it ultimately takes you to a place. I called the book Finding Your Clear Sky, because you change your perspective. And then you practice that turnaround and that change. And
Can
as
you give us an idea or an example of
yeah,
one of the exercises that we can do in order to move forward and not be so in our feelings, but have these better relationships that you've spoken about?
yeah. So in the Aurora method, what it shows you is after you do the honest assessment with yourself and you do the turnaround exercise and you see your patterns, I'll give you one of mine. I had some early trauma, right? And I'm not going to get into belabor the trauma, but one of the takeaways that I had was I don't belong. Okay. So I'd re-feel that, right? Like all of a sudden I'd be in a room and I'd feel like, oh, people don't like me, oh, I don't belong, right? And I would literally get real bristly, because my fear would be triggered. But with the Aurora method, when we learn how to have essentially a personalized affirmation program or a mindfulness program, I can now say, I'm worthy as I am, and I belong right here. And as I'm feeling the fear and I can feel the bristle, so now I'm in touch with my body. I could feel the happen, right? And I have to sit for a second. Not that I have to leave the room. I sit for a second in a meeting. I sit for a second in a networking event. I sit anywhere I am. And I literally just sit there and I can listen and talk and say, I'm worthy as I am. I belong right here inside my mind until the feeling dissipates. And what does it do? It keeps me present. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me kind. It keeps me understanding. And people are like, wow, girl, you're great. And meanwhile,
Okay.
inside, I'm like, ugh.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So
Well, I
that's how
celebrate
it
you.
works.
I applaud you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that good stuff with us. Now, my question for you is, I heard what you said, and to me, it sounded like you were using affirmations. Would that be correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you were calming your nervous system, because
Correct.
when we get stressed, I know with me, I get hot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, my body literally is heating up. I feel hot.
Exactly.
And so like you're nervous system is wonky, and you're sitting down, you're taking a minute, you're relaxing, and you're also giving yourself the positive affirmations so that you can think a new thought and move forward. You mentioned that you did psychology. Was that one of the areas of study that you did, or did you do psychology just in terms of your own walk and your own?
Well, no, I wanted to become a clinical psychologist, and I had I wanted to become a counselor. So I learned a lot of technique back in my early life. So what this work does, if you've heard of shadow work, which is sort of like it comes from Carl Jung. So when you look at the self-assessment in the Aurora method, it's really based on Abraham Maslow, right? Then when you get to the turnaround, it's really the shadow work. It's going deep with yourself and looking at your patterns and identifying what those initial beliefs were that are
So, for those of
triggering.
us who may not know what shadow work is, explain to
Oh,
us.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So Carl Jung was back in the, I guess the 1800s and the 1900s,
Yes,
but a very, very,
well-renowned
very
father of
renowned
psychology. Yes.
father, right? Him and Abraham Maslow both. But what's beautiful about Carl Jung's work, he says, when you can bring to the conscious, the unconscious mind, if you will, then you can change. But many people struggle with that concept, which is how do I bring to the conscious my unconscious mind? What the self-assessment does is it puts it out on one little piece of paper with a grid, and the turnaround is just a series of check boxes so that you can squarely look at your patterns quickly. When you see them, you're enlightened, right? And then what you do is you go back and you look at it and you look at the things that repeat over and over. And when you go back to the initial time it happened, you recognize, like in my case, that the I don't belong. It happened at an experience I had from my stepfather's mom.
Wow.
I'm not going to get into that, but because it's a story. But the point is that what I internalized there replayed over and over and over to the point of affecting me as a partner, affecting me as a leader, affecting me as a friend, and it kept me isolated, right? And meanwhile, I'm like craving connection, right? And
Wow.
I'm the one keeping myself apart. So when I saw that, I was like, whoa. And I knew what to do next, which was how do I do the opposite, right? So when we think and do the opposite, which is a very simple exercise, you write down what's the trait based on, what your belief tells you and the behavior that you do.
Yes.
And the book goes into all these various traits, which is
Mhm.
you just get to name them. And then what is the opposite that you can practice? So it's not like taking a watermelon and swallowing it whole. It's recognizing what's in front of you and empowering yourself with emotional clarity to change and being accountable to yourself and to everyone in your life.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, I know that you probably took a lot of time to learn this methodology and put a lot of time into writing this book. And so it's very hard to give us the nuts and bolts in 10 minutes or less
Mhm.
that we have left. But give us, you gave us one exercise. I guess that is the exercise, to actually write down what the thoughts are that we're having that are not serving us, and then write down the thoughts that would be the opposite, and then do it.
Yep, it's an exercise. It's very clear. If you go to my website, well, first, if you buy the book, it's all in the book. It's all there, and it just shows you right what to do, and it's simple, you know. But go ahead. That's one.
Okay, give us another exercise.
Yeah, one of my favorites is what I call the 1 minute meditation. And, essentially it's just, oftentimes, especially for women, I always speak to women, but men and women who are overwhelmed and you're struggling with emotional burnout, it feels like I keep saying churn. The inside feels like I can't handle it, I can't handle it, I can't handle it.
Mm.
So depending on what you're dealing with, right? It takes 1 minute. You just basically, I usually will breathe in, I'm handling it, and I'm breathing out, fear, right? So
Mm.
once I recognize what's happening, so I have to know what it is. So I'm handling it, letting go of fear, and it's a very simple exercise. And I mean, it's something that can be done all day long and very, very simple. Another one is really looking at morning intention. When you know what your traits are, you really can create your own mindfulness intention and set it. It takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes of quiet intention sets your day up. And then 1 minute meditations throughout keeps you set, if that makes any sense. But those are two of the key ones that I do.
Say that again. 5 minutes of
5 minutes of conscious intention, right?
conscious intention.
So once you understand what's happening, right, within, you have to do the exercises to get there. Once you understand yourself, you can set your intention for the day. So for me, it would be, especially what I recognized as some of my traits, having grown up on the street, being a street girl, I was tough, right? I fought. And so having made it and getting out of poverty,
Mm-hmm.
I found myself like, how dare you question me? How dare you not respect me? That trait is called self-importance, right? Or I would fight you to, not fight, but argue with you that my way was the only right way. That trait is self-righteousness. So if I'm practicing the opposite, right? Self-importance is really being humble. Self-righteousness is being kind and understanding. So my morning intention when I was working on this stuff years ago was, I'm open and receptive. You know what I mean? I'm listening and I'm kind. I'm recognizing others' opinions. I'm acknowledging, right? And I'd take 5 minutes of just, this is who I'm going to be today. And as I did that, what I found was people would say to me, gosh, you're so approachable. And meanwhile, before that, they were like, I'm terrified of you, So I was able to change the whole dynamic of every relationship that I touched by practicing my morning intention. 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all it takes. But the challenge is giving yourself permission to make 5 minutes for yourself.
To take the 5 minutes. So most of our listeners are business owners, entrepreneurs, speakers, teachers, authors, trainers. And so what was your profession before? I know you were an entrepreneur, but what was your business?
So I started and built a medical communications company. We serve the pharmaceutical industry, and medical communications is sort of like marketing with lots of big projects, multi work streams, that you have, and you have to really do it with precision. And the pharmaceutical industry, if anyone knows it, there's always a beginning, and then an end. There's never a middle. So you're pivoting, and always meeting the deadline never gets pushed back. So very intense job. And for any entrepreneur out there, I can appreciate that feeling of having to manage it all, right?
Yes.
And that's really what drives a lot of burnout. That's a belief, by the way, having to manage it all is self-reliance and not being willing to ask for help. And so as an entrepreneur, for me, when my burnout got real bad, it really happened. It happened. I went on the journey. I got better, but I call it deceptive complacency. We get like, okay, I'm better now. And I started the business, and who cares about morning mindfulness? Who has time? And I went right back to burnout. And
it's like Alcoholics Anonymous, where you have to consistently tell yourself that you are in recovery.
Correct. Burnout is, to me, emotional wellness and emotional healing, especially if you've crossed that line into burnout and you've gotten to that I call it that dark space of emotional dysregulation, which are the emotional outbursts. Okay. You have to learn to calm it. And it's a daily practice. And it's one that creates a change, a turnaround change. But in the absence of practice, those beliefs come back because we get triggered. So we have to manage those old wounds and those old beliefs that were shaped. And by reshaping them daily, the outcomes are amazing. Like I've mentored women for years, and I mean, restored relationships with their husbands, restored relationships with family, better teams in terms of better leadership and leading with clarity and confidence. So.
It's interesting that you say you've worked with women. You're not just working with entrepreneurs and working with people in their business, but it actually is helping them in their marriages. It's helping women throughout their lives. And I think something that's very interesting is the fact that a lot of times, as you mentioned, it's us. We think it's other people. We think it's them. But the consistent thread throughout our lives that shows that this situation keeps coming up
Mm-hmm.
is us. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's so important, really, to begin to look at those recurring situations. Like you mentioned that you didn't feel that people liked you, but there were different situations, different settings. And in each setting, you still didn't think that people liked you. Like if they didn't like you over there, well, maybe they like you here, but no, it's actually us and we're doing it to us. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so doing it to ourselves. So it's so impactful for me that you said that this was able to change relationships, because everything is relationships. I come from an HR background. My higher ed degree is in human resource development. And
Mm-hmm.
so I worked in management. I did a lot of conferences and things like that. And one of the major reasons why people lose jobs, people think it's because they're not qualified or because they've messed up and made mistakes. But actually, the secret is that it's relationships. We're
Mm-hmm.
not able to get along with the people that we work with. That's really
Exactly.
what leads to people being fired, because most people wouldn't even be interviewed if they
Exactly.
didn't have the qualifications on paper. And so our relationships with our husband, our relationships with our family, our relationships with our friends, our relationships with our coworkers, if
Exactly.
we can solve this particular issue as you're talking about today, Tracy, we can pretty much transform our entire lives and
We can.
every aspect of our lives.
We can.
So this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to talk to you today, and why I believe that your book and your content is squarely in the middle of where we need to be and what we need to be looking at. Because as an entrepreneur, it's so important for us to check our mindset. You were very successful as an entrepreneur, however. Tell us how you were able to cope with these challenging situations and yet still be such a successful entrepreneur while dealing with these other scary situations that had happened to you in the past.
You
What were
know,
some of the things that you were doing in order to
yeah, I mean,
not just
I think the biggest thing
be
for
there
me,
but be successful?
and I'm not, I was always very driven, right? Because I came from scarcity. So I had this drive that I had to do, I had to do, I had to do at my own expense.
Mm,
So when I burned out and I couldn't recognize my burnout, I was reactive. I mean, when I tell you the level of shame I have for some of the
wow.
things that happened because I couldn't control it, I mean, I had to go through a healing journey to finally recognize healing came from within so I could forgive myself. Because
Wow.
burnout burned bridges. So, but what I found was, and this is my favorite recent story because a woman for me. I hired her. She was my fifth hire when I started my business. And
Yes.
she remembers how I was. And now she's working with me again. And what she said after she read my book was, "Oh my God, I noticed you were changing.
Wow.
I didn't know what you were dealing with." And
Beautiful. Beautiful.
so she saw the change, she saw the transformation. Now that's not to say things like it's not like we become perfect.
Right.
This is not
Well,
about
no, perspection doesn't exist.
no, this is about ongoing
Improvement,
progress, right? It's progress, it's improvement, and as I
continuous
said,
quality improvement.
and that's why I call it deceptive complacency, because then we're like, "Oh, I'm good," and then we're like, "I don't," that was me. I'm like, "Oh, I don't have time for 5 minutes anymore. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." Bam, it would come back. Not that it came right back, but over
Right.
time, I would
Crept
get a
up.
trigger and I didn't handle it, and then it's like, oh, I did it again, right? So then
Mm,
I just really learned how to regulate. And what I committed myself to was daily practice matters. Healing from the inside matters because when I heal from the inside, I keep saying it, like everything around us changes, but it's us
mm,
leading the change. It's
mm.
us leading the change, not them who have to change. It's us. And as so many women I know who manage it all, it's like, why do I have to do it? Right.
Right.
And what I find is it's because we're the ones leading the disconnect
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
so
when we
funny.
yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
listening to a lady by the name of Shonda Rhimes. She's the one, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She has written many of these television shows,
Scandal.
highly successful
Yeah.
woman. You do know her.
Bridgerton. Yeah, I do.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
great. You know the community.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was just listening to her talk yesterday because she wrote a book as well. And she was saying the same thing that you're saying. She was highly successful.
Mhm.
producing all these multiplicity of shows, but yet internally she was hiding. She was
Mhm.
unhappy.
Mhm.
She was not going out, going anywhere, or talking to people. She felt they
Mhm.
didn't like her. She couldn't get along with them. And if she had a book like yours back then, or if she had your Aurora method,
Mhm.
she would have been able to move forward that much faster. And so, in this last few minutes before we close out, I'm so excited that you came to share with us this amazing new method that you have produced. Is there anything that you want to share with us before we go?
Yeah, the book really gives you the roadmap, but many people just they don't want to do it alone. So what I say to anyone who's listening is you don't have to do it alone. I'm offering a course. I'm offering a free webinar if you want to understand the hidden drivers and visually see the reaction cascade and what it does. So just www.tracydoyle.life if you're interested in walking through the Aurora method. It's an 8-week program. It really does produce change if you commit to it. So that's what I'd like to say. But the thing is Arlene, I've been there, I've done that, I've been a big entrepreneur, but what I have to say is like living this purpose, like for me, if I can just help other struggling folks who feel so
Mm.
emotionally alone and disconnected find their way back to themselves. And I always say their higher power, their God, and also to the other people in their lives, then
Yes,
that's a legacy worth living for. That's really what my purpose is today.
beautiful. And where do we find the book as well?
Oh, it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's in hardcover, softcover, Kindle book, so ebooks. And I'm happy to announce I'm launching my audiobook next week. So I know
Yay!
people are busy. So if
Yes.
they want to listen, they can listen in. And for those on the audiobook, I offer them a special website where they can go and get the resources that are in the book, so that they can print them out, they can have them, and they can work with it. So
Beautiful. Well, Tracy, I would like to say thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. Thank you for the amazing changes that you're making in the lives of men and women throughout. And I am looking forward to being a part of your program as well. And I would encourage anybody out there who's listening. She is an amazing person. She does not just talk the talk, but she walks the walk, that kindness, that extension of herself. And so I definitely would encourage you to go by and check out her site and click and get her books and be a part of this wonderful journey as well. Thank you so much for joining us
thanks,
today.
girl.
And I look forward to having you come on again. Will you come back again and spend some
Oh,
time with us?
absolutely, girl. Would love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All
Take
righty.
care. Bye bye.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us today as well. Bye bye.
Bye.